Welcome to our series where we discuss the latest real estate trends with Canada's most prominent business leaders, asking better questions to help build a better working world. This is Reimagining Real Estate. I'm William Yeager, a partner at EY Canada. In my role, I explore the newest real estate trends influencing the country's largest industry and ask the better questions that keep us ahead of the curve. Today, I have the great pleasure of welcoming Fengate Asset Management's Managing Director and Group Head of Real Estate, Jaime McKenna. Jaime, thank you for taking the time today. We are very excited to have you and learn more about your priorities at Fengate. Let's jump right into the questions. Tell us about your impact investment strategy and how you appropriately calibrate returns while making a social impact.
I think it's a great question, actually. So from an impact perspective, Fengate has always been focused on giving back to the community on social issues. In fact, the month before I joined, the entire executive team went to Peru and did a mission trip to Peru, which I thought was a really cool reason. One of the big reasons I joined the firm was I saw what a commitment at the executive level. So it's always been in Fengate's DNA. And we spent some time looking at across the firm. So with Fengate, we have three divisions. We have real estate, private equity, and infrastructure. And the three groups do work independently, but we actually did an exercise to look across the groups. And we've really just naturally done great work at social or investing in social infrastructure, whether it's hospitals, affordable housing, and so on. So we stepped back from that and said, well, okay, what's in our DNA? We know what we're doing. And then you asked me the question about returns. So I'd say two things. One is, now that we know that we naturally are capable of building a good impact investing strategy within the real estate arm specifically, we're just getting a little bit more tactical. So you start out with things like we're a signatory with UNPRI, we're coming on to GRESB, and now it's looking at the building level, what kind of climate action plans can we put in place. But I want it to be authentic. I want our impact strategy to be authentic and not because we're going to do this because we're going to seek money that's looking for impact investing exposure, but rather just build it through the DNA of the entire group at a tactical level. And then from a returns perspective, I actually think looking at it like it impacts returns in a negative way is not a good way of looking at it. I think it's a necessity. So if you think about greening your building, putting in environmental initiatives throughout your building, you need to do that because it's going to bring down your operating expenses to drive the returns in the future. From our standpoint, our major investor is LIUNA, the laborers pension plan. So health and safety for workers' rights, that's important. And we've looked back at our projects where we have a lot of union labor, almost all the union labor in a lot of cases, and our returns are performing the same as they would if you didn't prioritize union labor. So I think it's a bit of a misnomer to say that impact investing is negative to your returns. I think it's a necessity. And even if you just think about things like climate change, it might be a capital investment today, but you're saving on future capital exposure that not doing that would have.
Jaime, really appreciate your insights on this. Your takes are quite timely, and these elements come up in my day-to-day job all the time. In your opinion, why is gender and racial diversity so important for the future of real estate?
So improving both gender and racial diversity within the real estate industry, it's going to be a challenge. So we're at a difficult spot right now because of the low representation of either gender diversity or racial diversity. It just means the individuals, and I count myself in that, you always feel a little bit different or a little bit out of your skin because there's not other people that look like you. And I was joking a little bit today. So my SVP of finance is a woman as well. And I said, I think you might be the only woman I talk to all week long. And we kind of laughed about it, but you can imagine like if you don't have anybody else that looks like you or has the same values as you, that sort of thing around you all the time, it's uncomfortable. And I think that that's a bit of a driver for why we lose women in the industry, because they want to go to places where they're not always the only woman around the table all the time. So your question might be, how do we change that? How do we see more racial representation and female representation around the table? And I think there's a couple things. One is mentoring programs. So for me, I like to spend a lot of time talking about my journey as a woman in this industry. And it's not a negative thing, but I think by me opening up, other women feel comfortable saying, oh, you do have challenges. It wasn't easy for you. And, you do struggle with childcare. You do struggle with, mom guilt and all those things. And just by opening up, people feel more comfortable. And I think they're more willing to stay and want to advance in the industry. Public speaking. So I do a lot of public speaking in my position. And again, more women will come forward and say, oh, she can do it, I can do it. So I hope that mentoring model works as well. And it applies to hiring as well. And unfortunately, you have to make a conscious effort to prioritize diversity in your hiring process. And you have to do things that people might not be comfortable with. And I'll give you an example. We were recruiting for a role in my team in a group that is all white male dominated. And I flat out said, to be honest, guys, I don't want to see white male resumes come across my desk if I don't also see representation from the other groups. So challenge yourself. And the conversation was actually really interesting. It was for an analyst on the investment side. And they said, well, all the white males that we're getting are completely qualified. They're coming out of Western. They know what they're going to just step into the job. And I said, that's right. They're going to be able to do the job on day one, but you're not prioritizing other things that other individuals might be able to bring to the table. So in my first job, I was poor, in debt. I was hungry. I wanted to succeed, but I didn't necessarily have the Ivy League school behind my name. And I got hired because they could see that all my need to succeed and to pay the bills and want to perform was going to outweigh the fact that my school wasn't Ivy or Western or that kind of thing. So it's hard. It's definitely hard, but I think as leaders, we need to challenge ourselves. And then I would cross over from an ethnicity standpoint, from a racial perspective, is that you need to come forward and find yourself working with groups that are trying to promote racial diversity in our industry, in the investment industry. Reach across the table and say, how can I mentor? How can I share my story, hear your story, give advice? But it's got to be a conscious effort. It's an investment of time. And at the end of the day, it's just like we talk about impact investing. It's an investment of time now for a longer term payout.
Jaime, this was an important conversation to have, and we appreciate your candidness. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to following you as you continue to make impactful change in the real estate industry.